Very good Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. It certainly is glorious out there for most of the UK. We did see cloud cover across much of Ireland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of today, but we have started to see the increase in sunshine across the board and glorious conditions across Central Europe, including the UK. And even for parts of Ireland and Northern Ireland, it looks as if we don't have a huge amount of sunshine showing up on this latest radar imagery. But we've got very dry conditions across Central and Northern Europe at the moment here, but very wet conditions across Iberia. Upwards of a month's worth of rainfall within 24 hours or so for parts of Spain and Portugal. We've got another area of low pressure that is edging towards the Portuguese, Spanish coast, and that is going to increase the wind and rain. We're even seeing some wet and windy conditions down along the Moroccan coast and extending into the Canary Islands as well. But underneath this dome of high pressure that has slipped its way further and further eastwards over the past couple of days, that is dragging in a very dry east-southeasterly airflow from the continent. And as a consequence, dew points here minus 4.5 this afternoon, humidity levels down as low as 33%. That is very, very dry by our standards anyway, and that creates prime conditions for rapid heat loss once the sun goes down this evening. So we're going to see this continued swing, this diurnal fluctuation between cold, frosty nights and pleasant days, albeit the temperatures are subdued due to that breeze coming in off the 5, 6, 7 Celsius waters of the North Sea. But generally speaking, this is a classic spring blocking pattern that will linger through the next several days. We are going to see that area of low pressure down towards Spain and Portugal drift a little bit further towards the UK in the as we move towards the upcoming weekend. But this is the temperature anomalies over the last 7 days according to CDAS. Exceptional warmth down across the southeast of Europe. We've seen temperatures as high as the mid-30s in Greece and Turkey, for example, but stuck in single figures across much of northern Iberia over the weekend, even struggling to get into double figures in Madrid, for example. And we're seeing the wet and windy conditions here, providing the chilly conditions that I've said already. That area of low pressure that's moving towards the Iberian Peninsula is dragging in cold air all the way from Greenland. That's creating this 8 to 10 Celsius below average. But all the while we've got cold on one side of the continent, we've got plenty of warmth across the other side. That was back, over the last 7 days. We're seeing a dramatic change, by the way, with Istanbul now starting to see snow coming back in. So temperatures into the mid to high 20s widely across Turkey over the weekend. We are seeing a massive change taking place. And that has been highlighted for some time here on the channel, that we're going to see a dramatic change for Turkey, Greece, and that southeast corner of Europe here. So obviously over the weekend we did see a lot of messy conditions, wet, windy, a whole mixture of precipitation through central areas of Europe, while we had very warm, hot southwesterly winds getting driven up from Africa over the eastern med and into southeastern areas of Europe. So that's the last 7 days according to the CDAS. This is the upcoming 7 according to the GFS Extended. You can see here that we've got generally warmer than average across the heart of Europe here, slightly below average across the far north, and below average down across the Mediterranean basin, if you notice here. And it's all due to the block of high pressure that is in place. So if we look at the next 7 day anomalies in terms of the upper heights, this is how it's looking. And you can see that we've got this blocked pattern at the moment here. Areas of low pressure getting diverted into Iberia with all the wet and windy conditions. And this has become a theme in recent years across the south of Europe here, where we've had this blocking across Central and Northern Europe and the jet getting forced underneath that block, providing extreme rainfall across parts of southern Europe. That has become more and more of a pattern in recent spring seasons and even the early portions of the summer. It's going to be interesting to see. We're going to be looking at this in much more detail. That we're building quite an anomalous rainfall deficit across many areas of the UK and Ireland, central areas of Europe also, And when you look at the longer term pattern, it's kind of looking like we're going to remain with this blocking pattern. This is the concepts model here for upper heights during the month of April, and a very notable block over the central North Atlantic here, extending up towards Greenland. Also, if we look at the CFSV2 for the same time frame, the month of April, you can see again very similar to the concepts. It's got that block over the North Atlantic. That would be a cooler, drier theme for the month of April for sure. And it would also be a drier than average theme also, because if we look at the precipitation, according to the CFSV2, it's indicating largely below average precipitation for the UK and Ireland here. If we look at the European view specifically, you get a better handle on that there. So you can see a wet Central Europe, but drier France and much of the UK and Ireland. Look at the concepts model then for the month of April, and you can see that it's firmly drier than average, and that could have a consequence. And that, I think this is a bit of a footprint from La Nina. Remember back last late winter and into the spring season, we had the exceptional wet conditions. That was likely due to the El Nino, but this is looking very La Nina-esque as we move out of winter in through spring and possibly leading towards the summer season. So I'm already starting to kind of build these ideas with regards to the early portions of the summer season based on the pattern that we're seeing at this moment in time across the continent, and looking at the broader picture. This is a final stratospheric warming signature for sure, with increased blocking over the top. We'll look at the polar vortex, the MJO, in the next couple of days. In terms of temperatures, we did see a very, very chilly morning. This is figures from the Met Office, but this is courtesy of Braemar, Ballater, D-side and Donside weather. This is the morning lows this morning, and with the clear skies and light winds, we did see quite a sharp radiational cooling take place under the prime conditions. Temperatures slightly above the freezing mark to the southeast of London, but you can see here northeast of it and northwest, minus 1.7, minus 2.4, with a minus 3.4 at Santon Downham in Suffolk. As we moved into the north of England, you can see here a minus 4.7 at Shap. So fairly chilly numbers here into the central belt, especially east of Glasgow. We had minus 3.5, minus 2.7. And again, where you've got the breeze, we've seen the temperature stay above the freezing mark. But the further north you go, it was chilly out there. Minus 7.8 Celsius at Aboyne, Aberdeenshire, minus 6.6 at Aviemore. Near to my own location, well, my site recorded minus 3.3, but minus 2.4 was recorded at Lentran, minus 5.3 at Drumnadrochit, and then we had a minus 6.4 at Altnahara, minus 6.8 at Kinbrace. So, yeah, it was chilly out there, and if we look at the current figures of the model here, or of the Met Office network, should I say, this is the current temperature. So we are talking about temperatures in the breeze below 10. So that nagging easterly flow is keeping the temperature subdued. But where you've got shelter from that breeze, you're seeing a reasonable rise in the temperature into double figures at the very least anyway. So you can see here at this hour, which is 5 p.m. in the evening on Tuesday the 18th of March, we've got generally temperatures in upper single figures. The further south you go, you can see here that we've got the warmest conditions. Again, where you've got the easterly flow, you've got temperatures subdued in single figures. Further west you go, away from that cooling influence of the North Sea, you've got temperatures generally in double figures here. We've got 12.6 Celsius, for example, at Crosby in the Liverpool area. And we've got 11.2 at Keswick. We've got 10.9 at Walney Island. So generally speaking, this is a very, very classic blocking pattern where you've got easterly flow and an exposure. It feels quite chilly. We're also going to see the temperatures held up where that breeze continues through the overnight. But where you've got the clear skies and the lightest winds, we are going to see the temperatures drop like a stone once again. Wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if conditions remain ample throughout the overnight tonight. We could knock on the door of minus 10, by the time we reach tomorrow morning. But it's this kind of swing back and forth when you've got very dry air and abundant sunshine. You see a rapid heat loss during the overnight period, and then once the sun comes up, that air being dry tends to heat up much quicker than moister air. So we're seeing this classic textbook spring-like setup at this moment in time. And when you look at the ECMWF in terms of precipitation, this is going to become more and more of a theme as we move forward. This is the upcoming week, so Monday 17th through Monday the 24th. Drier than average across the north, wetter than average down across Iberia, France, possibly into the south of Ireland and the UK as well. This is, like I say, this has been a theme that has been ongoing for recent springs. Even as we move into the final week of March, 24th through the 31st, you've got a generally average precipitation here, but driest further north, wettest further south, indicative of that block. Then as we move into the portions of early April, even into mid-April, looks as if that dry theme continues according to the ECMWF because of the blocking persisting across the top. So we could see the first 21 Celsius towards the end of the week. The reason why is we're going to see the winds, rather than being easterly, coming off a rather cold continent. In fact, let's have a quick look at the temperatures this morning, because they were notably chilly, especially across central areas of Europe. Many areas upper single figures to double figures below freezing this morning. And that is a notable change, by the way, for areas down towards the Balkans, where we've seen the upper 20s, even low 30s, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, western areas of Ukraine in particular, north and south of the Black Sea. We've seen very, very hot conditions, warmest ever for the month of March anyway in recorded history. We're seeing a massive drop in temperature here, and that is going to be something that I'm going to talk about in the next few days. But exceptional amounts of rain is continuing across Iberia after what was a soaker of a weekend. But you can see here, back to the case in point, we have this set up at the moment, area of high pressure that eventually started off to the northwest of the UK, is now down across southeastern areas of the continent. We're seeing snow into the Istanbul area, northern portions of Turkey. What a shock to the system that is, by the way. Incredible contrast over the just a couple of days down here. But if we play through this loop, you can see that there's that area of low pressure winding up. The Spanish Met Service has named this system. The name has left my memory at the moment, so I'll not try and remember it. But look at how deep that area of low pressure is. That is a notable deep area of low pressure for this far south, and that is going to provide significant issues across parts of particularly Portugal, but southern Spain, western Spain, and we're also going to see some tremendous winds associated with this as well. If we actually put on the wind projection off the GFS model here, we'll get a better idea in terms of wind gusts. But this could be quite problematic for that coastal area of Portugal. 143 kilometers per hour expected just offshore. We could see 70, 80 mile an hour winds along exposure of the Portuguese coast in the next few days. And you notice here a lack of wind across the north of the UK. So that is going to provide that big swing back and forth in terms of the temperature. In terms of precipitation then, this is a total cumulative precipitation between now and the end of the weekend. Rather dry. We've got some wet weather moving into the UK, but generally speaking, the wettest conditions is going to be down across the far southeast and the far southwest of the continent. And you can see here, this was what I was going to go to a second ago. So in terms of rainfall over the last 72 hours, this is how it's looked. So pretty much bone dry across the majority of the UK and Ireland, across central areas of Europe, but the upper Balkan region and down across Iberia, wettest parts of the continent. We've also been seeing heavy snowfall, Tromsø area of Norway, in over the course of the weekend here. We're seeing some of the snowiest conditions seen all winter long up in this part of the world, but this is, I believe, the snowiest month of the year up in the far north region, exposed to both cold air from the Arctic and also systems coming in off the Atlantic. So it's a kind of top and tail precipitation anomaly chart, and also totals driest across central areas, wettest north and south, as can be seen here. But in terms of the dew points here, I wanna point this out. This is humidity levels, and you can see here that it is particularly dry across central areas of the continent, moister air further north and south, indicative of weather systems, and even across the UK and Ireland, we've got fairly low humidity levels, and dew points are even lower than that. We're seeing below freezing dew points, and that means that is essentially where you could start to see the temperature going if the conditions remain perfect during the overnight. Temperature can never go below the dew point level, but when you're talking about -4, -5 dew point levels in the afternoon, that is where your temperature overnight could potentially go if the environment was just right. Looking back at the overview then, I need to round things up. You can see here as we play through the next few days, we're starting to see winds changing from east to more south wind, and with that we're going to see the 850s. We've actually got a relatively chilly air mass in place at the moment, hence why we're not seeing these rapid rises in temperature in the afternoon. It's a combination of breeze but also a little bit of a cool cap in the mid levels, which is preventing strong warming at the surface, and then factoring in that easterly breeze that further subdues the temperature. But the further west you go, in more sunshine and lighter winds, you see that greater increase and decrease in temperature between day and night. But you can see here we're pulling in something slightly milder as we move towards the latter half of the weekend, or the week, should I say, and into the first half of the weekend itself. Then things turn a little bit more unsettled as that low originating to the west of Iberia moves up towards the southern half of the UK. If we go back to the overview chart, you can see it's much more unsettled towards the weekend. More on that in the next couple of days. Stay tuned. I hope you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Be sure to check out the live stream that was back on Sunday evening if you're wanting to look at the global picture. And I'll leave a link in the description below. And I'll see you tomorrow with more. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.